A long sealed door in the mind begins to crack. The chill you feel is the first warning of a blade already in motion. Now you must walk alone into the silence. Jeok Seong returned on the second half of the 29th day. I got some pretty useful items. In fact, there was a place I've been patroning for a long time, and I put in a request for a short sword. But all of a sudden, some strangers came into the store. Judging by their looks, they were local bandits. So I did some research and found some pretty interesting stuff. It took CLHWI a moment to realize what Jeok Seong meant by I did some research. He invaded their place, beat the shit out of them, tortured them, and then stole all their stuff. Jeok Seong has obtained the dry spirit armor and ghost short sword. Jeok Seong's combat power has increased by 22%. Neither object lived up to its name, though. The short sword looked like a dagger, and the dry spirit armor was obviously a shield. It would be handy for Jeok Seong, given his fairly large build. Well, using what you want is. It was certainly helping them, but CLHWI was worried about how it would work out in the future. For now, though, he was happy. On the 30th day, the last remaining member, Yoram, arrived. I'm so excited. By pure chance, I met this blacksmith from the Yang family. I never thought I'd ever have such a great spear. A spear? Yoram uses spears. CLHWI had always seen him with a sword by his side. Yoram has obtained the Thunder God Spear. Yoram's combat power has increased by 44%. Wow, just one weapon made his combat power explode. It really was perfect for his skills. And no doubt there were similar weapons for all of his members. And his last disciple, or porter maybe, Imugi, returned on the 31st day. His face was bright like Yoram's was, so CLHWI was looking forward to it. Did you get something? Yeah, Imugi brightly replied. Of course I did, but I brought valuable information from great people instead of what you normally see. A note of anxiety began to creep into CLHY's confusion. Imugi obtained information of a famous maiden in Sichuan. Imugi has made a name for himself as a scholar in Sichuan. Ha! CLHWI was struggling to understand what he was seeing. Or rather, he was struggling to control the urge to kill Imugi. It was no wonder Elder Beacon wanted to get rid of this idiot. So that's what happened. It's not hard, but only for me. Seriously. So if you want me to contact them, Captain, I can arrange it at any time. Imugi. Oh, are you worried about your face? Heh, that must be it. Makes sense. He kept talking. He just kept blabbing. If time hadn't fast-forwarded right then, CLHWI would have taken down Imugi. Unfortunately, it was the last day of the month, and CLHWI was moved back to his residence. CLHWI practiced simple movements in the yard. He used to spend a lot of time attempting to learn the Wind God, but after getting those shoes from Elder Beacon, things changed. He only needed one try to pull it off now. He sent a storm of energy in all directions that roared into the sky. The time it took him was negligible, even without paying attention to his speed. The attack itself was overwhelmingly powerful. On top of that, it didn't consume any of his internal energy. Wind God. Right arrow, down, right arrow. A 4.5 speed. The change from deleting only the neutral made it astonishingly easy. Elder Beacon's gift was incredible. If I can use my sword at the same time. He drew the sword of reverence its sheath and examined it. 70% increase in destructive power during normal attacks. 50% increase in destructive power during martial attacks. 50% increase in destructive power during martial arts techniques. 30% increase in destructive power when using 4 peaks demonic martial arts. Increased combat mode, turn-based, AI, simulation switches. Soul-chasing chi, sealed curse, all of his attacks were at least 50% stronger. The Wind God would be a whopping 30% stronger when he was wielding this sword. CLHWI wanted to see just how strong that was. An enormous chi storm appeared before his eyes once more, but he could see and feel the difference. Normally, the Wind God was so explosive it made the ground shake. Even opponents on the fringes were tossed around. In contrast, the Wind God with the sword was sharper and stronger. The winds were like a cyclone of razor blades, and it even flickered with lightning. The only disadvantage was that it wasn't as easy as doing it with just his hands. I can use this anytime. If my combat power was a little higher, no matter how I fight. While he was closing on his opponent, he could aim it at their head. That way, he'd be able to use the Wind God technique with either his fist or his sword. CLHWI would be able to defeat a stronger opponent with no problems. At this rate, He may even take down the Supreme Pavilion Lord. He was very pleased, but why am I still anxious? He'd spent so long worrying over how to get strong. Now, with his abilities and talents, he had the confidence to win a fight. Still, it felt like something was missing. It was gnawing at him. CLHWI had no idea. He had no one to guide him, let alone a proper master. All he knew was what he could see. But he'd fought with his life on the line before. Can't I become like the AI? Actually, most of his anxiety came from watching the AI fight. It always exceeded his expectations and overcame the toughest battles. Its movements and carefully chosen attacks dramatically improved CLHY's chances of living. So that was why he worried. What kind of training did he need to become like that? Could he have those skills? This is fine for now, though. I was in a rush to catch up on strength. He didn't worry about it too much because he had to take care of his life. Could he die right now? Maybe he'd miss an important chance, but he couldn't spend all of his time worrying about that. He had other issues to take care of. Now that he'd improved the abilities of his subordinates, he had to take care of his own growth. Whether it be weapons or pills, he had to get stronger. And then, someday, he would see what was beyond the horizon. So he had 9 months left, and then he was done. He knew the Earth Demon's mission wouldn't be a simple one. If he took it, he wouldn't be able to come back here for a while. Before that time came, CLHWI needed to develop his abilities as much as possible. Perform missions with team, receive the Earth Demon's mission, new. Schedule for subordinates, new. Take a mission, warrior training. Earth Demon, 4th disciple of the Heavenly Demon. Hyuku. Jeokpa, Hidden Truth Instructor, Dr. Hong, the man who had healed CLHWI, no longer appeared on that list. CLHWI had died twice because of his greed during that mission. He got his new weapon out of it, but it was an important time to him now. He'd raised his subordinates up, didn't he? He was determined now. Jeokpa, Hidden Truth Instructor, CLHWI agreed right away. Together, alone this was new, but CLHWI wasn't worried. His subordinates would be helpful in many ways, especially with millions of combat power. He'd have a lot less issues with them along. His vision flashed, and then CLHWI saw Jeokpa. Jeokpa, there you are, I wanted to tell you something. CLHWI, please tell me. Jeokpa, do you know where our group's funding comes from? There are 3 places, but the largest is from the main hall in Sichuan. That's where the Hidden Truth gets most of the finances for its activities. CLHWI, but, Jeokpa, well, there's a problem. I didn't bring it up in front of the Earth Demon because it's not that serious, but we've still got an issue. A person on our side, Jiam Manyong, was lending money to us through big business and rentals, but there's a guy who's been threatening him with his position lately. CLHWI, who is he? Jeokpa, we still have to investigate, but his name is Baek Yangchun. Apparently, he's the Blue Dragon Sect leader. He's famous in the area these days, and he already has around 300 warriors under him. CLHWI, what do we need to do? Jeokpa, I'll give you 2 months. First, contact Jiam Manyong. Find out the situation and whether it can be resolved through negotiations. We can tolerate a certain amount of taxes, but if they ask for too much, there's nothing we can do. CLHWI, well, if we can't. Jeokpa, I mean get rid of them. Quietly, CLHWI, got it. Jeokpa, be careful. I trust you, but they are formidable opponents, and their martial arts are good enough to be considered one of the 7 dragons of the latter peak level. Do you understand what I mean? With that, CLHY's vision brightened again. He found himself surrounded by nature. He looked around, surprised. He was at a food-laden table with his 4 subordinates by his sides. How did this happen? Why was a Supreme Pavilion warrior in one of the Hidden Truth's income branches? Did the Supreme Pavilion Lord do this? Was it revenge for being humiliated by the Earth Demon? And did Jiam Manyong, knowing this, take him in willingly? If so, this was a huge betrayal. Be calm. I cannot show my feelings here. If his suspicions were correct, then he'd be able to make his move. Without knowing his opponent's skills, however, he needed to move carefully. He'd learned that through countless deaths. Please sit. This time, CLHWI sat. He ran his eyes over Jiam Manyong. He had a fat potbelly, an equally round face, and limbs that were too short for his bulk. Heh, ha-ha, this is good. We were about to send a request from our end, too. Jiam Manyong wiped his forehead with a cloth. A request? Yes, as you may have heard, I haven't been able to meet my obligations to the Corps the last few months. One of the sects here has been keeping pressure on me. You mean the Blue Dragon Sect? Right. Jiam Manyong dabbed at his reddening face again and cleared his throat. It started about 2 years ago. I met the Blue Dragon Sect leader when he purchased an empty martial hall nearby, but somehow things have changed a lot in the last few years. It's probably because of the rumors that they're good at teaching martial arts. How many families' children have improved their skills? Since then, word spread, and martial artists from the nearby regions have flocked to them. It's been getting especially crowded lately. So the Blue Dragon Sect leader needs a lot of money because there are more people. I think that's the biggest reason. As the number of people grew, there were also more people laying claim on pieces of Chengdu under the pretext of protection. As the region grew, so did the stakes. The stores we manage, the leases, and the protection fees. Although Chengdu was now a developed area, it still had many weak points. Normally, a small sect or subsect would be used to help control the region, but the Blue Dragon Sect had grown fast enough that it didn't need to rely on anyone else. And then not only did they increase the tax, but they gave their skilled warriors jobs and were searching for ways to expand their power. Did you try negotiating? Of course I did. But judging by their attitude, I wouldn't get my hopes up. The amount they're asking for is more than what we're earning, so how could I agree? Besides, if we take one step back, they'll keep asking for more. You know how it is. The strong prey on the weak. His words made sense. The Hidden Truth Corps danced on the edge of legal and illegal. Inevitably, that created friction with the Murim alliance. On top of that, they still had to deal with the normal pressures of business. And so I asked for the Hidden Truth Corps to help. What do you mean? I was asked to wait for a while due to the internal conflicts in the Hidden Truth Corps. It has to be because of the incident with the Supreme Pavilion. CLHWI recalled the dead members. Their deaths had thrown the Hidden Truth into an uproar for a time. Right. I couldn't afford to wait, so I asked the sect. Fortunately, someone came to help me just in time. Who was that? The Crimson Demon Pavilion. The situation was urgent, so they sent an escort first. Well, I was worried about my life. CLHWI silently examined the warriors behind Jeok Seong. His white, well-groomed face spoke of a rare sort of nobility. His cold expression cut a cold contrast with the vividly decorated sword on his waist. Crimson Demon Pavilion. What is their duty? The man didn't answer. I heard that he has no specific task because he belongs to one of the 5 pavilions, Jeok Seong answered instead. CLHWI nodded. The logic tracked, but he was more interested in what this man's relationship with the Supreme Pavilion Lord was. Don't worry too much. They said that he'd head back when his work was done. CLHWI had an uncomfortable feeling, but he hid it behind a smile. What would you like me to do? He asked. Well, the best solution for this would be, you received a mission from Jeok Seong. Mission, eliminate the Blue Dragon Sect leader, Baek Yangchun. However, there should be no witnesses. Upon success, acquire necessary funds for mid-year activities and manufacturing of desired equipment. Rewards, unsealing Scroll 1 piece of the secret office map. If there's a problem, get rid of it. That's the surest solution for now. CLHWI frowned. There's a chance that the main sect will come back. How are we supposed to deal with Mount Hua? That's fine because I hired someone I know. The strong people are in the Murim alliance too, as always. Jeok Seong put his thumb and forefinger together into the unmistakable symbol for money. CLHWI nodded. Clearly, there were greedy people everywhere. But who are you trying to fool? He thinks killing one man would fix the entire situation. No, the man had a plan. For now, however, CLHWI had to play along. I will go right now. Accept mission. I'm going to search for a different method. Mission pending? I have something else to do first. Reject mission, a forked path. CLHY's eyes widened. The options were giving him choices on how to handle the mission. Reject. I can turn down the mission. He stared at the option. The mission would entail danger, and he knew that not all choices would end well. Every choice would influence the situation and the people. He'd seen that many times. Fuck, this is. He didn't know what to do now. This mission had too many issues, but he couldn't figure out which way he needed to go. In the end. Good, you understand. Jeok Seong handed him a letter with a bright expression. It had information on Baek Yangchun, as well as some unexpected things. The hours he eats, the times he goes to the bathroom when he meets people. We recorded all of it, as well as for the warriors who escort him. Please come back once you've got results. 3 days later. It was time for the sect leader to take a short bath and then go to bed. Jeok Seong had picked this as the best time to assassinate Baek Yangchun. CLHWI agreed. It was often said that the best time to assassinate someone was when they were asleep. However, those who have actually performed an assassination know that the opposite was true. A skilled warrior's sense never slept. On a quiet night when everyone was asleep, he'd feel even the smallest change. Therefore, the optimal time was about an hour before the target went to sleep. There was another reason. It was said that Baek Yongchun had to cultivate right before he fell asleep. Everyone knew that the most difficult time to react was when you were cultivating. "Captain, what are you so worried about?" Jeok Seong asked. The day was dark. The time was drawing closer. "Phew," CLHWI made a troubled frown. "If everything goes according to plan, we should have no problem infiltrating. That's the problem. I'm sorry, it's too perfect. There's something weird about it." CLHWI crossed his arms and turned to Jeok Seong. "The information is too accurate. There's much more there than we could find. How does GM Manyong know his every move? Why does he follow the exact same schedule every day like a clock? Well, aren't they enemies? If they were watching, then they'd be able to know." "Right, that's the issue." Jeok Seong tilted his head, but CLHWI didn't say anything else. He didn't want his subordinate to make a mistake because of something he said. Right now, they had to focus on their task. "If only I knew when Baek Yongchun cultivates." If they knew, they wouldn't need CLHWI. Even the escort Sang Chunjang could have done this. So what's the trap? If he didn't know, he couldn't act. How annoying. But if he didn't go through with this choice, he wouldn't know what would happen. CLHWI stood up. The time had come. They couldn't wait any longer. "Let's go." CLHWI and his subordinates seeped into the darkness. Their first mission, the assassination of Baek Yongchun, had begun. Blue Dragon Sect. Sect leader, Baek Yongchun. 2 days ago, CLHWI and his team did a survey of the man's surroundings and the sect. The sect grounds were full of colorful buildings. How the heck does a martial arts sect handle a place this huge? There was a tall outer wall and a watchtower on the side. 2 guards at each corner and 2 more at the front gate. He silently raised his hand. His subordinates took off and the guards were down before they had a chance to react. Not dead, just asleep. In a mission as suspicious as this, more deaths would create more mistakes. His team sent hand signals back and CLHWI moved. Now it begins. According to the calculations, it was time to hide inside Baek Yongchun's residence. That way, he would be in position to make a surprise attack. He carefully opened the door and walked in. The sudden question was unnerving, but CLHWI reluctantly pressed yes. "What is this?" All his ominous feelings came to a head. The timing was tight. He had no time to hesitate. The die had rolled. The Blue Dragon Sect had a structure in which 3 joined buildings and 4 joined buildings. Here, the 3 joined buildings is a form in which 3 buildings surround a courtyard in the middle, and the 4 joined buildings is like a resident type of buildings, which was joined in east, est, south, and north. It is a building type which is often seen in the Sichuan region and is used for various purposes. In particular, most of the building was used for training and receiving guests in the sect. For this reason, there are 10 residences and 4 training halls. If it goes according to plan, there need to be 3 residence halls. CLHWI remembered the previously prepared infiltration route. The direction is from the back door and not the front door. It has the advantage of having a relatively small number of guards and a shorter movement space, as the place of Baek Yongchun was closer. Also, the height of the outer wall of the sect was low, which made it easier to break in. The problem is the guys patrolling. There was a passage on the roofs of the building. Nearly every roof was being patrolled with warriors. The first place he would have to pass when moving is through the roof, so he would have to be extremely careful. At night, the guards will turn on their lights and search around, and even a small change in sight of sound can be detected. From there to the main building, and the boundary of the high watchtower, where the residents can be seen at a glance, has to be considered as well. The ones who patrol and the ones who look from the watchtower. He would have to break through both of them at the same time. At least, half of each side. I need to move half from each side. The residence of Baek Yongchun was located after passing the 3 joined buildings, and the 4 joined buildings there is a 4th room after passing the hall. It wasn't impossible to do if the information given was right. He even knew about the number of guards and knows the time the guards change. But not everything can go as planned. If some has a different thought or if the information is wrong, they would need more time. Then well-planned things will be completely ruined. Shit. 280, 278. CLHWI knew what that time meant from his previous experiences. Considering the concept of time, it is approximately giving him 1,350 seconds. so he felt complicated. Only 300, no 280 seconds. He had to go into the residence of the sect leader within the time frame. Of course, he had to move undetected while moving. The goal is to assassinate. SHH. While CLHWI thought, the movement of his subordinates stopped. The back door of the Triad buildings, a place which looked like a guest room. His 5 subordinates who had crossed the line were waiting for orders by lowering their bodies. And among them Swish. Seo Ryong, who raised her head, sent a hand signal. She took the role of identifying the warriors roaming around. 3. Pit. CLHY's eyes turned blue, night white eye. A martial arts which can detect objects even in the dark by using internal energy. Sish. CLHWI raised his hand and looked at the warriors who climbed the watchtower. It was to check for blind spot. 210, 209. The number kept decreasing. His spine felt cold, and at some point, Sack. CLHWI lowered his hand. Papapate, Yoram, Jeok Seong, and Yang Jin threw themselves to the floor. Tuck, crash, the noise wasn't too much. The subordinates rushed in no time and broke the necks of the warriors who were walking one after another. Hurry up, Tack. There was no particular reason to spill blood. After all, these are people who will have to shift in a while. Those who finish working late at night tend to soothe their stomachs or go to bathrooms. Even if they don't notice the difference, they would have a hard time spotting this abnormality. The subordinates threw the corpses into an empty room. Meanwhile, CLHWI watched everything without blinking an eye. He looked at the sight of the guards on the other side of the roof. Chack. CLHWI stood quietly like a stone and raised his hand once more, and then pointed to a place. Sack, Sack, SGHH. The subordinate skillfully climbed the outer wall and moved into the residence in harmony. However, the expression of CLHY's face was going stiff. Damn it! At this rate, I won't be able to go on time. 150. 149. Half of the time was done, and there are 2 more roofs left. If they move as carefully as now, it will take a lot of time to do this. I can never reach that place. Tack. CLHWI climbed onto the wall and then confirmed it. A lot of energy could be felt from everywhere. The boundary of the outer wall were guards who were moving to their posts or patrolling. No matter how fast I move, I will get caught. SHH. CLHWI was starting to sweat. It felt like he was on the edge of a cliff. He was looking at everything in the blink of an eye. He couldn't know when one would notice him. He had to find a way to avoid all these eyes. Captain. Imugi, on the rooftop they cleared, turned his head. The captain, who should be behind him, was still on the other side of the wall. What are you doing, that man? What is he looking at? If CLHWI could hear Imugi's thoughts, he would be shocked. But actually, he had been looking at the world from a different perspective. Combat mode, the time stopped, and the new simulation asked him. The shortest time taken to avoid the eyes of the enemy and enter the residence of Baek Yang-chun. With CLHWI cry, the simulation responded. But damn it! He couldn't help it. CLHWI headed to the nearby high spot from where he was. Tap, tap, 5 floor high. If he jumped up from the roof path, he could reach it. However, the warriors who were walking around would notice it. Remove the 3 under that indigo roof. Leaving Seo Ryong, everyone follow me. Flinch. Despite their faces covered in masks, the hesitation of the subordinates could be noticed. They knew something was wrong from the words of CLHWI. This is different from the plan. And among them, Seo Ryong was the fastest to follow the orders. Tack. She drew out her dagger and scanned the indigo roof path. And as soon as she looked at the 3, she didn't hesitate. Swish. She turned around and stepped on the wall and went to the roof wall and threw her dagger at them. Awk! 3 daggers pierced their throats without hesitation. Papapat. At that moment, CLHWI moved from his place to the roof. The distance was huge, but he ran over and looked at 2 patrolling in the yard again. Yoram responded to CLHY's words. Moving swiftly, he moved down and went for the throats of the 2. Papat. In the meantime, CLHWI managed to reach the place. However, this wasn't the destination. This is an area around the patrol, not the residence area. And there were 8 who were looking at him. Get rid of all of them in a moment. Jeok Seong, Yoram, and Imugi all attacked them. Perhaps because it was a dark situation or they were surprised, the movements of his subordinates were a lot more agile. Papapat, meanwhile, CLHWI used light footwork and reached the high spot. 2 patrollers could be seen coming. Chack. In the blink of an eye, their necks were attacked. Huck. Without even gasping breath, CLHWI checked the time. 78, 77. This was feeling hopeless. Yet the time which doesn't stop and flows naturally could be seen. A ray of hope. just in case there was Xianxia's earnest wish to not bring in a fight in this situation. Chak, buildings covered in darkness. From the overlooking place to the inside of the sect, number names were coming, and soon, the results appeared. If enemies cannot be eliminated in one hit, estimated time will increase. The path had things marked in red. The first step was a leap, stepping onto the guardrail, with the words to mark the beginning of the night. Fat. Xianxia flew through the air like a bird. He was leaping a height of 5 meters above and soared high above the building. Pat. Then, stepping on the higher outer wall, he took another leap. The point where the red line of vision sharply bent, and he saw 2 guards. He lightly landed and sensed that their presence was weak. The moment the warriors titled and looked back, suddenly the passage of time slowed down. 3 illusions shone in Xianxia's eyes. Slowly, in the extremely slow time, Xianxia's illusions moved. Everything is different. 3 illusions with different movements. One immediately ran to the 2 and suddenly turned red as it vanished. Another was to hide in the side and surprise them when they come closer. The last one was a way of stepping on the wall of the building next to them. However, it is a curious thing. The point was that the 2 couldn't be killed. Maybe because of that, run straight ahead, hide in the building and ambush, jump onto the right wall and attack. 5-4. In the rapidly decreasing time, Xianxia chose third. And then the flow of time was back to normal. Papat. Xianxia jumped on the wall of the building next to him, and at the end when he was about to jump, he got caught in their sight. Chak. One was decapitated and the other tried to swing the sword. Kang, the guy managed to block the attack. There, Xianxia quickly slammed the opponent in the shoulder. Puck. When the opponent's body had lost its balance, he immediately put a sword into the chest and covered the mouth. Yoop. PRRR, the body which was trembling stopped. And then Xianxia took a deep breath. Shit, a phrase which made him nervous. 65-64. While the absolute time was decreasing, the expected time was increasing. Xianxia didn't even have time to think. There are 5 more ahead. This was a battle for his life and not against the enemy. A battle against time had begun.